Be more ambitious than you think you should. Do something you care about.
Bridgit Mendler, everybody.
Bridgit Mendler.
Bridgit Mendler.
Bridgit Mendler.
You are really the queen of Disney now.
You probably remember Bridgit Mendler from Disney Channel and #1 pop songs.
Bridgit Mendler is ready to add pop star to her resume.
I think we got into a really good groove on Good Luck Charlie. For me as a kid, Hilary Duff, Lizzie McGuire, I wanted to be like that.
But now she's left that all behind to run a company at the center of the next space race. In this episode, we're gonna connect all the dots from her early life to the moment that she realized that while most people think that the future of space is about going to Mars, it's about something else entirely, something far more important and something that's going to change your everyday life. And almost no one is paying attention to it yet.
For me, space was going to Mars or going to the moon. To think that space was being used for something impactful on Earth was kind of a new revelation for me.
What advice would you give someone early 20s?
Great topic.
Let's go. That is what we're going to unpack in today's episode. Bridgit Mendler, welcome to Nothing But Tech. I feel like we often see tweets of you where it'll be like Bridgit Mendler, Disney star, pop star, space CEO, but I haven't seen a full in-depth interview where it kind of shows how everything connects. Because to me, I feel like connection is like the forefront that is like the thread line of your life, whether it was connecting with people via acting or now connecting the world to space. So in this video, I want to ask you like
I'm a bridge.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Okay, so in this video, I want to ask you the questions that everyone's curious about, and then also hear what you're working on with technology and why you're excited about the future.
Cool.
Welcome to the
Let's
show.
do it.
All right. Let's start when you were a kid. You said that you caught the acting bug when you were 9 years old.
Yes.
What was it about acting?
Yeah, I think I really just enjoyed, expressing myself, but I think I also liked the kind of like, oh, this is actual work. I'm being in a professional setting. I thought that being able to work as a kid was so cool. Like when you're a kid and the idea of like, ooh, I could drive a car or I could, do this kind of job. It felt very intriguing. So I was 9 years old. I was ready to get to work.
I love it. Yeah, in an interview you talked about how because you were doing school online, you had like no threshold of like how hard other people were working, so you always have to like work extra hard. And I feel like work ethic is like the most important thing in any endeavor.
Yeah, you always gotta, just put in the extra work.
What was the pivot like from acting to singing and then kind of like wanting to leave that world?
I was always making music, so it was really just the opportunity through the label at that point in time to share it more broadly.
Yep.
I was very particular when making that commitment to work on it more publicly. Like, I have to write my own songs. Like, I have to be able to do it the way that I want to do it because that's the thing that's rewarding about music is being able to make it and express yourself.
Every time he smiles, I let him in again. Everything is fine when you're standing in the eye of the hurricane.
One of your like co-songwriters said in an interview recently that, and he's like worked with like Justin Bieber and all these other people, that he thought you were like the most talented lyricist that he had ever worked with.
To this day, might be the best lyricist I ever worked with.
Really?
Watching her write lyrics was like watching like a Renaissance painter. We'd be like, this is the concept. And she'd be like, oh wait, I have an idea. And then she'd like read you the verse and you're like, what? You just wrote that? Like, genius.
Oh, that is very flattering.
Yeah, and he said that when you write, you're writing like a Renaissance painter, where he would have an idea and then you would kind of like conceptualize like how to tell the story. I feel like storytelling is like the skill that transcends no matter what industry you move into. It's like the most important. What do you think are like the frameworks that make a great story? I
feel like I'm trying to learn that all the time. I think storytelling is hugely important. I mean, that's what you work on, but it's just the power of an idea. It's like an idea of how the world could be, of a common experience that people share. A large part of it is just like getting to the kernel of truth, which is actually quite hard. Like you could say something pretty general, but I think it takes a lot to like be specific and be really honest about what you're trying to communicate. That's usually what I'm trying to drive at is like, what's the real like true thing in what you're saying? And then the rest is like super easy.
What moment from that period of your life sticks out the most is like, I'm really proud of this moment and like this is how I'll remember that chapter?
That's a good question. Honestly, I think we got into a really good groove on Good Luck Charlie. The ability to stick with a team for 4 years, 100 episodes. We worked with the same directing team for like a lot of that time too. And you just really get into characters. Like it's a sitcom,
you were
but
great.
like we, blended as a family and the ability to just like build that rapport over time, I think is just really special. I just enjoyed like sitting with a character. So that was great. I would also say like the thing that pushed me the most was Undateable, the show that I worked on, because it was all live. And I was
Okay.
working with
Wow.
comedians that were like improvising and stuff. Extremely intimidating.
Yeah.
But it like really forced me to get out of my comfort zone, which I think is something that's like stuck with me to this day.
And was that the spark for why you wanted to then go on SNL? I know that's like a long-term dream
Oh,
for you.
really?
Yeah.
I forgot that dream.
Gotta get back around.
You're reminding me. I don't know that I was like particularly good at it, but I got better, and
Yeah,
I was
sure.
very determined to get better. So
You were great. I'm 23, so I like grew up watching Good Luck Charlie.
Oh, thank
you
you.
were always top tier. It was an amazing show.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so that happens. You go to MIT.
Yeah, yeah.
You realize like Media Lab. This is where I want to be.
Yep.
What's in the process to like getting there?
I was just curious. I was just like very curious about the broader world at a certain point in time. I grew up, my dad is an engineer. He designs high fuel efficiency car engines, and recently, actually later in his life, he's transitioned to designing electric car batteries.
Whoa.
And then my mom, she's an architect. She works in like green design buildings, and that was kind of her emphasis. And so for both of them, they were just very passionate about what they did. It was kind of an exposure to me of other fields. For my dad, it was engineering. For my mom, it was policy and also a fair amount of engineering and the techniques around green building, because they were really just being developed at that point in time.
What's green
and
building?
It's like how you can build zero carbon emission buildings.
Oh,
so
whoa.
like you
That's
kind of
really
have
cool.
to rethink a lot of
Yeah.
how you design and build buildings to
So like solar panels on the roof, like stuff like that.
or just like where you place your windows and where you place
Oh,
your heating units, and what type of materials you use in all of the different buildings. So yeah, it's pretty holistic.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, it was really cool to learn that stuff from her too. Yeah, grew up with both of them kind of as my influences in work. I have a really big extended family too that also have various like engineering aspects to what they do. And that was something that I just began to crave more. And so I started taking undergraduate courses while I was acting. But I went to film a movie in Massachusetts, and I visited MIT while I was just on an off day from set.
Okay.
And I was just kind of awestruck by seeing the university. Specifically, I was at the MIT Media Lab. I got to talk to some folks in a group while I was there.
What movie were you filming at the time?
Father of the Year, Netflix.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Classic.
Let's go. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I was really excited in acting about confidence of expression that all of these artists that I admire were able to build a career on. So for me as a kid that's watching like Hilary Duff and Lizzie McGuire and things like that, I wanted to be like that. And then once I went to MIT, I saw a total different kind of confidence, where it was like confidence in the skill that they had in the engineering discipline that they were working in. It was their own expression of creativity and like new ideas, and that was like the next target for me. Like that's what I wanted to be and to work on. I visited the lab, and I was like, all right, how do we go from this one conversation I have with like a researcher in a group to me, this person who has maybe a year of undergrad courses under her belt, getting into this master's program?
I remember you at MIT were doing like a social media analysis app.
First, it started with the artist formerly known as Twitter. I tweeted the director of the lab. We wound up chatting, timing aligned to join their fellowship program, and so I got slotted into their fellowship program, which was really just like a way for me to be there more,
Like be around the
more
environment?
regularly. Yeah,
Okay.
kind of like pester them. And
that.
so I wound up staying to take some courses.
Okay. What types of courses?
I took like a blockchain course. I took another one on social platforms and their role in political discourse and things like that. And so I wound up, meeting the professor that I ultimately wanted to do a grad program with. He was like, cool, you seem to have, interesting ideas on what you could research, but you need to be able to build it yourself. And so I started learning the skills for both doing data analysis and then also kind of presenting it in, a front end. And so had to learn kind of like the data analysis software tools as well as the kind of front end development tools. And was able to do that just by kind of forced saturation of the
Nice.
material. And it went well. We wound up actually like presenting it at an all hands at Twitter, and
Wow.
so that was kind of my proof point so that I could get into the lab.
And then were you at the lab like full time, like every day? Is that okay? Interesting. The connection point to me is that you were analyzing like how conversation kind of plays out on the internet, right? So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
positive tweet leads to this type of interaction, negative tweet looks like this.
Yeah.
Which I think is so cool and like kind of ahead of your time, because now it feels like Twitter is like the place where a lot of like discourse is determined. You do that, and then how do you get from that to law school in space? What's next?
The Media Lab, I recommend it for anybody who hasn't visited. It's a very eclectic place. There's a lot of diverse groups that work on projects right side by side. So our group was focused on the projects like you mentioned, and it was sitting directly next to a space group.
Cool.
And the cool thing about that space group is it's called Space Enabled. Danielle Wood, she's great. Their group focused on space applications for Earth. So a lot of really cool use cases like, invasive plant species monitoring and a lot of applications that were intended to help people on Earth manage their resources better and a lot of like
interesting.
natural resources better. And I thought that was really unique and something I hadn't been familiar with. Like for me, space was going to Mars or going to the moon.
Yep.
Space was galaxies.
Yep.
It wasn't James Webb up yet, but
Yes, but it was like black holes.
Exactly.
And like, yeah.
And so to think that space was being used for something impactful on Earth was just kind of a new revelation for me. And then during the pandemic, we went to Northwood Lake and we started messing around with some antenna prototypes. Griffin, our CTO, who's also my husband, he was working at Lockheed Martin on satellite systems at that point in time. And so his version of a pandemic project was to make antennas. And I'm like, great.
People are
sign me
making
up.
sourdough bread and he's making antennas.
Yeah,
Love
so
it.
he's making the antennas. I'm like, I'll build you a dashboard. So me and some friends, we just like did more, the software side of things. But he was really like the brains of the antennas that were being built. And again, it was like, man, you bring the data back to Earth.
Yeah.
We were able to actually, off of public broadcast satellites, get a lot of like really great imagery of the Earth. I actually want to put a picture up around the office.
Oh, cool. Of like the first thing that you guys saw?
Yeah.
That's cute.
Yeah. But so yeah, it was kind of just multiple points of exposure that kept reinforcing like how important it is getting the data back to Earth and what that means for people on Earth.
I think it would kind of be cool to explore like what satellites are and how they work, because I think that most people have a perception there are like some satellites in the sky, but then you see the photo where it's like so many satellites,
Yeah.
like thousands, and I think people don't really know what we use them for. So
Totally.
let's start there.
Oh, great topic.
Let's go. I live for that reaction. Seeing our guests light up about a question is my obsession. And to do it, our research prep process is intense. I watch every single interview that they've ever done, watching their facial expressions for when they light up but don't get a follow-up, and then I put all of that into a CIA-style briefing report. But I'm not a great designer, and that's where the sponsor of this video, GenSpark, comes in. It's an AI tool that takes care of the design heavy lifting. With AI slides, I can prompt it, Bridgit Mendler Space Company, and get back a beautiful deck that has additional sources and research, all designed in a visually engaging way. I am blown away by the deck that GenSpark just put together. It has space emojis and consistent colors. It looks visually incredibly interesting. I didn't even give it that much prompting. I literally just said Bridgit Mendler Space Company, and it's comprehensive. It pulled information on who the other co-founders are, how much money they raised. It did a competitive market analysis of who the companies are that are also creating different space infrastructure and how much money the market is worth. And with their AI Sheets tool, it pulls additional data and can analyze it to instantly see trends without any formulas needed. That's how I spotted which satellites are currently in space and the industries that are most using them. GenSpark is a great creative partner that figures out the best AI model to use, and then it delivers design that sticks. So if you want to check it out, I'm going to link it below. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring this video. And now back to the conversation with Bridgit.
What satellites are, they are basically an object that you put up into space to do something.
Okay.
It's like extremely vague, but I can get into more detail on that. The way I kind of break down the applications are like, is that object in space sending data from space, sending data through space, or sending data for space?
Ooh, okay.
So data from space, that's satellites that have some kind of sensor on them and they're capturing something. Maybe it's taking a picture. Maybe it's capturing some like signals going on the Earth. Maybe it's looking at like things like soil moisture and carbon emissions. Like you can look at all kinds of different atmospheric measurements. Data through space is basically like the equivalent of fiber for how we use, connecting things on Earth, but
like
it's
the
running
ocean
through space.
internet cables, but in space.
Yeah. So really like if you think about how you use your phone or how you connect to the internet, you could be doing that same thing, but through space. So that's like what Starlink does, you know? It's not about something that they're capturing in space. It's about using space as a medium to get things from one place to another on Earth.
It also leads to like killer plane Wi-Fi. Like when you start like on planes, it's unreal.
Right, yeah, so that's like a perfect example of a place where you just couldn't pull a fiber cable up onto an airplane. Satellites are how you access that.
Okay, so that's number 2.
And then the third one is data for space. So that's if you are like, you know, the International Space Station, you're like people floating around in space, or maybe you're some maneuvering satellite in space going between orbits, like trying to go up from low Earth orbit, which is like closer to the Earth, and you know, satellites are moving faster down lower. Maybe you're moving up higher into a spot that's further away from the Earth. So all of that control of those satellites moving around needs to be managed as well.
Is it like one group managing it, or how does that work?
It's each company that focuses on it.
Oh,
so,
and how do they not like crash?
Yeah. So
is that actually like a risk?
Yes, absolutely. And like that is something that they do have to like monitor for collisions.
I feel like as we send more and more up, it's going to become a greater and greater problem. Like obviously space is infinite, but like low Earth orbit isn't necessarily.
Yeah, and that is actually something that at Northwood we're passionate about as well, because you know, by having more connection points on Earth, you're able to make sure that those satellites don't collide with each other. Because if you can only contact your satellite like every hour and a half, a lot can happen in that period of time that could lead to a satellite going off course.
I feel like there's a common perception of like, why are we spending so much money in space? This feels like a waste of money, like so many problems on Earth. And then you realize that like a lot of our everyday life is completely impacted by space, and a lot of the next breakthroughs are going to be in space, whether it be for medications or wildfire detection. Did you grow up as a kid just like interested in it, or was it like a slow burn then you like realized?
You know, I lived in DC for the first couple of years of my life. My dad used to take me to the Air and Space Museum, things like that. Like I always thought, you know, space was interesting, but again, I had no clue how space was used on Earth. And yeah, like once my eyes were open to that, I thought that was very compelling.
And was that at the Space Bureau when your eyes were open to it, or was this like even before that?
So the first project that I worked on when and it was actually even before it was the Space Bureau. So this was when Space Bureau didn't exist yet. It was not a thing. And then it was the International Bureau Space Policy Division. So that's where it lived before space was kind of elevated to its own bureau. But it was this project working on a Starlink terminal application for Alaska, and I was reviewing comments, and one of the comments was from a school in Alaska talking about how if they were able to use the Starlink internet, it would be so transformative for their learning. And I just thought that was like, it still gives me goosebumps. Just
I just got chills.
Yeah, how cool it is that space is able to be a meaningful, you know, part of changing kids' lives and their educational experience.
And who gets access.
Yeah.
Was that while you were still in school, or is that after?
That was while I was in law school.
And why law school?
For space specifically, you're dealing with literally every jurisdiction in the world because satellites, you know, operate over the world. And, you know, you have to deal with international regulatory bodies like the International Telecommunications Union, which is actually even older than the United Nations.
I didn't know that.
There's like a ton of just fascinating things about how space actually operates and works. When I saw other generations of communications technologies like, you know, wireless, cellular, the internet, it was all so influenced by the law and by how regulations shaped out.
What are the regulations right now that like maybe don't make sense for space?
I think it's all changing. Like the one that I had the most exposure to was the FCC, which governs spectrum. So like, yeah, the spectrum is really how do you control satellites because they're so far away. You have to send RF waves or, you know, optical links, things like that. So you have to regulate that because you can't have folks using the same airwaves and conflicting with each other. So the government moderates that. And then there's other things like, you know, the FAA. I think those are like two examples of major ones for the US.
Okay, so level 1, we now understand that satellites help us get information to and from space.
Yes.
And then level 2 is what you guys are building, which is like the ground station.
Yeah, so there's all these different use cases that are opening up, which is awesome and so exciting for a bunch of different reasons. You are connecting people who haven't had connectivity before. You are learning about our planet, you know, sometimes for very critical scenarios like disaster alerting, preparedness.
Like wildfire detection.
Wildfires, flooding, landslides, all kinds of different things. it's also like really helpful for agriculture and precision agriculture. So
Oh, interesting.
in parts of the world where you don't have, where water is scarce or where you're, struggling to make the most of your resources, space is very helpful for monitoring that.
That makes sense. Like we would basically be able to see it, or like what are we monitoring?
Yeah, you're monitoring soil moisture. You can actually see that from
interesting.
space.
Okay.
So anyway, there's all these really like valuable use cases for life on Earth. Illegal fishing, that's another one that I think is
tell
super
me.
fascinating. You can actually spot illegal fishing boats from space.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Could you see like the individual boat or just?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Another use case I just have to call out because
Yeah,
there's
tell me.
so much. Like I don't think people are aware of like how impactful GPS is for all of the world.
Yep.
So GPS, these interesting satellites initially launched by the government for position and timing. So position and timing are each very valuable for like a ton of use cases.
Okay.
So if you think about position, that's useful for every like GPS application that we have, like
Yep,
being
like
able to use
navigation.
Uber.
Interesting.
Your little
Yeah.
Uber Eats driver, like that dot that they get on the screen, that's
Yep.
thanks to satellites.
Very cool.
So every positioning, like mapping technology you use is because of that, but also timing, which is kind of crazy. So actually, satellites have these atomic clocks on board, GPS satellites
Okay.
do, that then broadcast timing signals everywhere in the world.
Well, like how we set up our clocks.
Exactly, and that's how we have timing synchronization, which is how we
Whoa.
manage our financial markets.
Unreal.
That's how we handle our power grid. It's used in so much important infrastructure.
What did we do before we had the satellites?
I mean, think about it, like synchronizing timing is actually really hard over long
Yeah,
distances because
of
if you're
course.
trying to do like terrestrially, you have to string together a bunch of different
Yeah.
stations.
And even if it's like a second
anything
off.
could get cut. Yeah, exactly. And so it kind of unlocked a new level of precision and timing, which has had downstream effects for a lot of industries.
So was it not precise before satellites?
Not to the same degree.
Wow.
It's nanosecond
That's
accuracy.
crazy. Yeah, because if
Yeah.
you think about like hedge funds, like they're all trying to like get like that edge.
Yeah, yeah.
And if like satellites do that, wow, that's so
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So anyway,
Okay, so that's the
so
satellites.
many use cases of space
Yep.
that are very exciting. And so then on the ground, the point is there's such an explosion of use cases, many, many more satellites up in space, moving around dynamically.
Yep.
That totally changes the requirements for how they connect back to Earth. So going from 1 or 2 ground stations,
Yep.
which is like the point on Earth that you use to connect to space and
Okay.
basically like tell it what to do or get data from space, things like that.
It's like in a physical location and
In
it
a
connects
physical
to
location.
multiple satellites.
Yeah.
Is it like a computer or like how should people think about it?
Yes, so it is an antenna. What an antenna is something that sends signals and receives signals.
Okay.
So that means that, those signals are carrying information. It's basically like an instruction that you send up and a confirmation that you got that instruction coming back, or
Okay.
maybe some amount of data coming back. But that's just how you get any service or value from space, is through antennas that send and receive signals.
Okay.
Sometimes they do some amount of work on the data, some processing on the data at
At the
site,
grounding station. Okay.
and then they'll send it back to wherever the user is. So like if you're on your computer here,
Yep.
and you're like, I want to take a picture of Alaska right now,
Yep.
you could send that command to a satellite. It would go to a cloud provider that would then trigger the instruction, and then you'd bring that image back down. It would go back to that cloud endpoint, and
Yep.
then you would be able to access your image from the cloud.
And how many grounding stations are there in the US right now? Like, is this like there's one in every block? Like, how many? Because there are thousands of satellites.
So there are a lot by SpaceX. SpaceX has built a lot, but
Okay.
the rest of the space industry does not have a ton. I think that's like part of the stark difference that you're starting to see is a lot of these companies that are not SpaceX just don't have the same resources for that. And so what is exciting for us is you can provide that resource that a bunch of different companies can access, and that kind of gives them a different foundation to build upon and to come up with new things.
So what would they do before you? Like, would they just not have a grounding station, or
They
would they
do
rent
have
one?
to limit their capabilities. So, for instance, if you are, an imagery company, you might be able to only take so many pictures because you can only like store so many on board your satellite before
That
you
makes
can
sense.
bring them back down. If you're a communications company, you might be only able to serve so many users because you don't have enough connections back to Earth to serve them.
And do you rent it? Like, if you have a grounding station, do like 10 companies use the same grounding station, or like would you have to manufacture a grounding station for each company?
So our vision is the former.
Okay.
Really inspired by other infrastructure that you see in other industries, like cell towers.
Yep.
You know, an industry that probably a lot of us don't think about until
Yep.
you have to think about it. But
Totally.
like,
The second you don't have service, you're like, what is going on?
yeah, exactly. And so like the way that those cell companies deploy more service is by using shared towers. So like multiple cell companies will use the same tower infrastructure so that they can reach more customers. They get to reach more customers a lot faster because they can access that shared infrastructure.
Yep.
Same thing that you see with internet infrastructure. So like if you're looking to build an application on the internet and you want to put your data close to your users, you don't like build your own building for putting the data close to users. You use a shared building that is already built for that, like
Yep.
data center buildings, points of presence. And so we're saying, okay, let's apply this model to space where you have that shared resource
Yep.
that a bunch of different companies can build on top of.
And so what does that look like right now for you guys? You start designing this during COVID.
Yeah.
You've had like a really big year
Yeah.
working with A16Z. What does the day-to-day look like right now, and what are you building towards?
Yeah, I mean, the exciting first proof of concept, and perhaps we can show having early customers that are sharing our hardware. So we're kind of working through the first motions of what that looks like in practice, and we've been really excited that folks seem to be aligned with this kind of direction, and what we're providing is valuable. There's just not enough opportunities for satellites to connect.
Yep.
So let's put a lot more connectivity out and do that by putting ground stations at different points in the world.
Love that for you. All right, before we go tour, we're gonna do a little rapid fire question round.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 1, tech CEO that you most admire.
Tech CEO that I most admire. Oh, that's tough. I gotta be honest. I don't think about tech CEOs too much.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Do you have like other people like you think about like I want to like I remember Justin Timberlake was it like when
Oh
you were
my
in your
goodness.
acting career?
Yeah.
What is it now?
Maybe it's my sleep deprivation or something. I can't think of one right now.
Maybe you're like charting your own path, like no one else has done what you've
I
done.
think, honestly, like I think that's a large part of like what building a company is. It is like
Totally.
a lot of trying to do something new, and so like you can learn from others in the past
Yep.
to a certain degree. But you do kind of have to like be your own thing.
Yeah, you just like eat glass a little bit, figure it out.
Yeah.
On that note, a lot of people that watch this channel are like founders or building something.
Yeah.
What advice would you give a founder?
Just do it.
Ooh, I like
I think
that.
that's like the fastest way to learn is to actually just get out and do it. And I would actually say like be more ambitious than you think you should. And this is
Ooh.
something that I've appreciated in the input that I've received from various backers of the business is you'd be surprised how quickly things change and how quickly things develop. And so, if you're setting out to like use your precious time in your life building something,
Yep.
build something big and choose something big, choose something meaningful. The other thing is like it's going to take up so much time and so much of your life energy to build.
Yep.
Like do something you care about. Like do something that you will feel very excited to wake up each day and do.
I love that. Okay, a lot of people in their that watch the channel are also like early 20s. I think they look at you as a huge inspiration, as I do, of like achieving excellence in
Oh.
so many different fields. What advice would you give someone early 20s?
I definitely think any time that you spend doubting or hesitating on what you want to do is a waste of time.
Ooh, I like that.
So just pursue your curiosity and like just don't be shy about going after what you want. I will also say for myself, like I am not the smartest person in the room, in any room.
That's
go
not
into.
true.
No, it's true. But that doesn't matter because like if you're like earnestly seeking to do the best and to be better and to improve and like truly earnestly like seeking to do the right thing, and if you are determined in that, then that can get you quite far.
I love that. All right, you're amazing. I am very excited to tour around, and thanks for coming on the channel.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Of course.